if we're working with people, as teachers, evangelists, as pastors, if we don't have this basic stuff of how to encourage and appreciate and support other people the way we are supposed to as Christians, then maybe we ought to go back to kindergarten, because this is what we're talking about. Everybody needs this. Every evangelist, every teacher, every pastor, and every lay person. And it's all possible.
Jim, you've been in the ministry now for 41 some years, and you've seen a lot, you've done a lot, you've had a myriad of responsibilities, and you've cultivated different interests over the years. What has been kind of the number one passion of your ministry over these years?
Well, I think I sum it up sometimes by saying I've been working in the pool of pain almost the whole time. I was a parish minister, but even then my interest was on people who are hurting, going through tough times, whether it was divorce or death in the family, unemployment or mental illness. So my interest has from the start been on the people who are going through tough times, and that's really where I have been the whole time, in what we call here care ministry.
Well, I'm aware that every year your church that you serve now, the Crystal Cathedral here in Garden Grove, sponsors under your leadership an international conference on care and kindness. Why did you pick that topic, and what do you try to get across to the clergy and the laity that attend?
Well, after all these years of working in care and with hurting people, about 10 years ago, it dawned on me. I was still hearing all the same stories that I'd heard when I first got into ministry with hurting people. And that is, so many of them were talking about how when they went through a divorce, their friends abandoned them, or how when they went through hospitalization, people said unusual things and unhelpful things. And so I was hearing all these same stories and had assumed that we were all kind of growing together. But I started realizing that we had to do something to help God's people to become better at this whole thing of relating to people who are going through tough times. So that's how it started. It was dawning on me that we had something, and I specifically had been one of the few pastors who trained to be in pastoral care and worked in it the whole time, rather than sliding into it or falling into it by someone's assignment. This is what I wanted to do, and I realized that I should take what I had learned and try to share it with the broader church. And that's how it got started.
So a lot of the criticisms that have been leveled against Christians and churches over the years, like see how those Christians treat each other and chew each other up, and how unloving and bigoted and insensitive they are. They don't even show oftentimes common civil courtesies, let alone kindness and care. That's the kind of thing that you're trying to overcome?
Well, really, and it is kind of distressing to hear. I think the church researcher George Barna recently said that in his work he had found that Christians aren't any different than anybody else.
Isn't that sad?
That really jolted me.
What an indictment of the church.
It just really bothered me, and I think it is so unnecessary. It is, and so this conference, this Care and Kindness campaign we're on, is really an attempt to change something which seems changeable. Because I think most Christians want to do more, can do more, and will if you equip them and teach them. And I think the the last straw in planning this conference was I heard from one of our pastors. He said, several of our friends are single mothers who work as waitresses. And two of them work at a specific restaurant, and they told us that we hate to work on Sunday. And Jim Cox said, well, yeah, they probably want to go to church. He said, no, that's not the reason. He said, at Sunday noon, the church people come to lunch. And he said, they are the most demanding, the chintziest tippers, and the most rude people of all that we get.
Isn't that sad?
And these waitresses said, we know they're from the church. The second one, a mother of a Down syndrome child told me about how they brought their child to the church nursery and put it in the baby bed. And the other mothers around the room were oohing and eyeing over all the babies, but they never came across to look at ours. And I thought, that has to change. We can do something about that. And, these aren't bad people. I said, these aren't people who are mean. They just need to be told, inspired, reminded, shown that they can do something and that they should. And so that's how we got started on this conference. And our idea was and is to influence the church, to start here, but we just think it's something that should become like a prairie fire sweeping the country through the churches, that everybody, all Christians, can do a little better. And we want to start that fire going more and more, and because it is so good, it is so possible, everybody can participate in it, and it's exactly what Jesus Christ wants us to do. So I mean, how could we not do it?
All right, well, now you're going to be sharing some of your thoughts in a few minutes with us on this. Mm-hmm. And you've sort of picked the topic, 90% of caring is just showing up.
Yeah.
Well, the people who will be listening in on our conversation or watching us, some may be pastors, some may be lay people, some may be evangelists, a lot of church members. How will individuals, whether they're leaders or laity or entire congregations, how do you think they can benefit by this? What will they get out of it if they try to apply what you're about to share in a few minutes?
Well,
what are their benefits?
Sometimes I call this kindergarten stuff. That we need to do this first. If we're working with people, as teachers, evangelists, as pastors, if we don't have this basic stuff of how to encourage and appreciate and support other people the way we are supposed to as Christians, then maybe we ought to go back to kindergarten, because this is what we're talking about. Everybody needs this. Every evangelist, every teacher, every pastor, and every lay person. And it's all possible. It's all possible. It's doable because it's ordinary things that people can do. And so we use this theme, 90% of helping is just showing up. It's a little book I wrote. And because people seem to opt out on the basis of they feel like they're not qualified, they don't have enough education, they don't have enough insights.
They don't know the Bible well enough. They're
yes.
not great prayers, outer-louders.
That's right. And so we try to strip that all away because, and I found this over the years, hardly anybody has ever told me that the help they got when they went through a crisis was something that somebody said. But it's always somebody came. They sat with me, they hugged me, they cried with me, they took a walk with me. It's always something that anybody can do. So so this 90% is showing up idea is, you don't have to be even a graduate of the 3rd grade. You can do this, and everybody can.
It would be nice if even a lot of clergy did this, wouldn't it?
Well, I believe so.
You know,
yeah.
as a pastor, I'm thinking you get so busy running programs and things like that, you don't have much time other than your formal hospital calling to be nice with people.
Well, it's
in
true.
some ways,
It is
including
true.
staff.
Yeah, and yet, so much of it takes 10 seconds. You know, you can do so much for somebody with a touch, with a smile, with 2 minutes of listening. It doesn't. If you become intentional about it, it is something you can do without having it really impinge on your schedule very much.
Well, how about launching from this now and just sharing some of your thoughts on the whole subject of care and kindness? And
The people that have been doing this at the Crystal Cathedral, we decided to find out some of the key things that people need to know to be adequate, average deliverers of all this. And we came up with 5 points that we call the 5 essential keys to care and kindness. And the first one is that I, as an individual, and this applies to every living human being, I have something to give to other people. And even if you are a Down syndrome person, or a college graduate, or a dropout of the 3rd grade, you still have something that other people need. And so there's no way you can get out of this. There's no way you can disqualify yourself from being a person who can be a care and kindness deliverer. So if people would realize that, and this showing up principle is part of it. But anyway, the second one is that everybody needs it. What everybody has, everybody needs it. Namely, encouragement, appreciation, a pat on the back, a smile. You know, every one of us has been healed by a smile by somebody. A stranger in the mall or something can come along and give you a smile and greet you, and suddenly you're feeling a little better. So those are the first two principles of it, is that everyone has something to offer, and everybody needs something. And that is so true. I remember one of the striking things I read about Luciano Pavarotti. He said that he carries a little clipping in his wallet, which is out of a newspaper, where someone had said something very favorable about him. And he says, when I prepare for a concert, I often will get that little clipping out there and read it to help me feel more adequate and confident about what I'm going to do.
isn't that amazing?
And this is the greatest singer in the world. He still needs it. So that's something that we're really trying to teach. We're trying to teach people to, you know, well, here's an example. We have a little staff meditation once a week, and different staff members lead it. Well, I've been watching that for a while. After a person leads, after the meeting is over, there's 40 people there. 1, maybe 2, will go up to the person who spoke and thank them for what they did or said. The rest are out the door. Out the door. And practically everywhere you go, this is true. Whether it's a concert pianist or a comedian or a pastor, people think they don't need to be thanked or appreciated directly to their face. So, and everybody does. You ask anyone, they all like it. They eat it up. Because we're all needed. Okay, the third one after those first two is that when you bring a word of kindness to someone, you say you're going through the grocery store line, and the cashier there waits on you, takes your money, gives you your credit card or whatever. You say, an appreciative word to her, even if it's, boy, you have a nice smile, or I like the way you work, I believe you're giving hope to that person. This is delivering hope. In other words, every one of us tends to think that maybe this world is just mean and unkind. And if you give a person one simple smile or word of encouragement, you help them believe, oh, maybe there is goodness in this world. And goodness is God. Goodness is Godness. So I really believe the simple role of just encouraging people, anonymous people, is a way of bringing God into this world. And I think opening them to the fact that, oh, God must be alive after all. So when we realize that every one of us is a hope deliverer, I think every person in the church ought to leave on Monday morning after being inspired again in the Sunday service. Going to the grocery store, you're not just going for tomatoes, you're going to look at people and notice them and encourage them. And if we are doing that, this is what Jesus means by the light, being the light of the world, I think. And it is so simple, it is so obvious, it is so needed, it is so possible.
It's interesting that how often the scriptures say, encourage one another.
Yes.
And yet, many people don't know how to do that. If a friend of yours is going in for open heart surgery, or has just lost a job, or is unhappy on their job, or struggling with their teenager, or there's some kind of a intra-church fight or whatever, Christians as a whole don't seem to know how to express things. And so people kind of walk away, like you say, unhappy.
Well, that's what our conference really is trying to do. You know, it's 90% is showing up, but there's another 10%. And that is the people who come to speak, like yourself and others. The hope is to equip people a little bit more so that they are aware and able to talk to people who are going through tough times. Because there are two different things here. It's one thing to encourage the checker at the grocery store, but it's another thing to stop in. Someone's going through surgery or they've had a very heavy diagnosis. And so the conference really tries to bring in people who are helping to explain and helping people understand how to visit the sick, how to call on someone or relate to someone who's going through depression or Alzheimer's and some of the other problems of aging and all the dimensions of grief. You know, there's an unending need for people to understand grief, because most of the things that people say to the grieving are unhelpful, because we're always trying to fix people instead of finding a way to have compassion with them. And see, the other thing about being a Christian is one of the most prevailing definitions of God is compassion. God is compassionate. He feels with us. And if we are created in the image of God, we have that in our system. And we are called on, I believe, to be actively delivering compassion and being compassionate with people. We do not have a right to be indifferent. So the fourth point that I was going to deliver is that Jesus said, if you do it to the least of one of these, my little ones, you do it to me. So that every time we are bringing hope or encouragement or appreciation or a smile to anybody, Jesus Christ says, you're doing it to me. Now, that means, in my opinion, that every individual is so valued, so precious, that Jesus Christ identifies with them. So that ought to be an extra incentive. You know, I can't like everybody, and so I can't be that gracious to everybody, but Jesus Christ does. And so each of us is obligated to do what we can, as much as we can, and we can all do something. But the Lord loves them all. The last point is that I believe, and I think this is pretty well acknowledged, that it is infectious. Kindness is infectious. When I deliver it to you, you're going to do it to someone else.
Now, what is that little saying that we hear, a rising tide lifts all ships?
Yes. Yeah. And a kind gesture on the freeway multiplies endlessly too. You let somebody in to your lane, and lo and behold, they let somebody in. And there's a wonderful little poem about smiling that starts out, if I smile at you, that smile goes around the world, because you cannot smile at somebody without them smiling back. And so that's the other thing about this. I think if we start this tidal wave, which we're trying to do, we're still just a ripple, but we want it to become a tidal wave. It is going to be catching, and the world needs it so much more today, for a variety of reasons. For one, we're such a high-tech world that we need high touch, and the terrorism that has us all scared and worried. I think more intentional, conscientious care and kindness that every one of us can deliver is a strong antidote to bring peace and hope to troubled hearts.
I'm 62, and God has privileged me of living on planet Earth for those years. It certainly seems a faster paced world with a lot more stresses. Maybe I'm imagining it, but people are under a lot more deadlines and stresses, and there are many more single parent homes, and there's a lot more heartache out there, and it certainly infiltrates the church.
Yeah, the church is just a cross-section of society,
Sure.
and it's all here. And you mentioned the love one another. I looked up those passages. There's about 20 one another's in the Bible, maybe more, where support one another, encourage one another, love one another. And if we have to start at the church, we got to start where we are in our families and so forth. But there's so much good in the hearts of people that's just sitting there waiting to be let out on people around them. That's what we believe.
And obviously, when you treat people this way, those who are outsiders, those who've not come to link up with God in a personal way, that can be simply a step of evangelism for giving you an opportunity, sort of earning your right to be heard when you do give an answer for your faith and share with them what Christ can do for them.